Okay, so for this first session, this will be an introduction to wireless communication systems and technologies. Again, class, I forgot now what I have placed in this set of slides. So, so we have here a picture of a forecast for the year 1907 of what the future will look like in the year these two figures are not communicating with one another. The lady is receiving an amatory message, and the gentleman some raising results. So, kanila class is a forecast, no, for the year 1907, or what will happen in the year 1907, considering that it's still 1906 today. No? I think wala pa na-invent ani ang ang modern, no, na antenna. As you can see, may antenna sa ulo sa babae trying to listen to what to some kind of message. Then si sir is the paminaw raising results. No? So at least it's a good news na dili ani ang tinood nga na itabo, right? It's not like this, but it's close enough. No? Because many years later, a box of some sort is naman dito naka-install or naka-mount an antenna for which siya mag-pick up sa electromagnetic signal na generate sa mga broadcasting stations. So at least, no, close enough, but not quite. I don't know sa ning gawa sa box paper siguro. Ay, siguro basahon. Pero anyway, how we might think na medyo humorous or funny ang tuan. Pero considering wala sa idea good of what's to happen just 1 year from when this was produced. Kasi hindi ako sa ato karon, no? I think this was the idea that I wanted to push during this time. Na we have no idea, okay? Especially if ang atong knowledge na nag-gain is only limited. We really have no idea what's to come 5-10 years from now. No? We've just heard of that term fairly recently, 5G. Pero what's ang capability sa 5G? No? Where will 5G take us? Or even the technology after 5G, 6G, diba? So, takabalo. We cannot imagine. Who could have imagined, no? Even 20 years ago, who could have imagined that the implementation of 4G, no? What we have right now, LTE, is as fast as what we are experiencing now, right? Katong college po po, no, year 2010 downwards. Of course, ang internet kailangan naman, no, fairly established naman ang internet. During that time, amo pang predict. I think predict is still a accurate term. Amo pang predict kung saan capabilities sa 3G, no, at the time. Imagine na 3G pa to at the time of predict. And even I could not imagine we will be using the internet today, no? Or I did not predict nga naka-useful ang internet like how we use it today, no? Like as long as naka-connect lang at as long as naka-load na natong cellphone or data, no? Pwede kita search for any information that we like. Sa una sa una, no? Itong time na mo when elders speak of sa una, they tell us nga sa una kung gusto may information o ito yung library, no? And kami we were proud, no, knowing na kung gusto na mo o information na mas accurate pa yun, at wala may internet chat, no? Gasto lang yung 10 pesos or 15 pesos per hour, that we could find any information if we want, no, conveniently. But now, when we mentioned that word sa una bitaw class, no, gusto may information, ato may internet chat, but today, kung gusto tag information, open na natin itong cellphone, na ito Google, diba? Very, mas convenient kaysa sa among experience sa una. Abigay na mo kanang among experience sa una nga pamaagi sa gather information kay wala na ayon, no? Very convenient na. So, napaday mas putak ang ato. So having that in mind, try to run down, no? Project or forecast kung sa kahaging tsura sa internet 5 or 10 years from now. Could this get any better pa ba? No? I'm sure it would. Pero could you imagine how will the internet be better than what it is now? No? I'm not sure, no, but maybe the next step to this is smart glasses. Nakakita ko last year of presentation ni Mark Zuckerberg. Nag-partner siya with Ray-Ban. Ang Facebook experience is i-transfer niya sa smart glasses. Right? Google Glass yan Google naman na nakuha, no? Taon na, pero until now, wala pa man yan. But I'm sure they're still perfecting it. Diba? So, yeah. Well, the point is, the point is, even if with the information that we have now, it's still pretty difficult to project the technology. What will technology look like 10 or 5 or 10 years from now? Next time. There's a long-standing tradition among scientists, engineers, and industrialists. Every year they make predictions about the future. So just like now, is blockchain a major technology or is it just a buzzword? So until now, ang blockchain or cryptocurrency, di naman siguro cryptocurrency ang direct na effect sa blockchain on the technology. But still, this thing is at its infancy pa man. Or will it just be a buzzword? Tama lang ba ng talagang generation? So what's versus apps? We win in 2017. So 5 years ago, pa dahil relevant na slide. The predictions that history remembers most are those that demonstrate spectacular misjudgment, misunderstanding, overly optimistic hyperbole, self-delusion, or good old-fashioned wishful thinking. So let's read now some predictions, no? Misjudged predictions. In 1878, William Orton, president of Western Union, which is still existing today, William Orton said, "This telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication." But where is telephone now? Diba? Siguro karon, dahil naman yung kayo ang cellular phone or smartphone sa telephone. Pero, di ba, grabe, useful ang telephone. For many decades. But in 1876, the misjudge or proper term. Na-underestimate, no? Grabe ang pag-underestimate ni William Orton sa effect sa telephone. 1876, still, the Americans have need of the telephone, but we do not. We have plenty of messenger boys, said Sir William Rees, chief engineer of the British Post Office. 1889, Thomas Edison said, "Fooling around with alternating current is just a waste of time. Nobody will use it ever, period." site ninyo. Okay naman siguro, makuha naman eh. Di man po niya siya, di man po niya sila fake news, no? Dali naman niya sila pag dali naman mapanita, sa akin nila ng mga codes. 1903, the horse is here to stay, but the automobile is only a novelty, a fad. Said Horace Rackham, president of the Michigan Savings Bank, advising Henry Ford not to invest in Ford Motor Company. 1921, the wireless music box has no imaginable commercial use. Who would pay for a message sent to no one in particular? But look at where broadcasting is now. I think yung masabot is radio, no, or radio. Associates of David Sarnoff responding to the latter's call for investment in the radio. We might think of these misjudgments as funny, but of course they have their value. These pronouncements would teach us a thing or two about technology, about the misjudgments or underestimation of technology. 1926, radio. While theoretically and technically television may be feasible, TV day, no, 1926, commercially and financially, it is an impossibility. Ang yapag yung na ilahan nga TV or television at this time, 1926, ikatong TV box pa. I'm sure kamo mismo wala naman yung siguro na updan, no? Ang TV ngayon yung ilan ka, wala na siguro lagi technically TV ron, hindi ko sa pag-describe this 1926. When we speak of television now, kana namang mga smart TV nga connected sa internet, di ba? Mga technically large screen computers na maginat sila. No? Isa lang ka button sa remote control, pwede naman tayo i-direct sa Netflix or sa YouTube. Pero ang kaninga TV, na i-describe din, is ka na pang TV nga nasa cabinet. Kung bago na, kasi kung bago na, TV nga nasa cabinet na. Ang TV na pa, iyang own cabinet ng container, iyang own na door, no? Sliding door, and iyang pag-change the channel is using knobs pa. So, yeah, wala siyang television before. And that has been what TV is for many, many decades. I think early, lately naman nga, TV yun is na yung smart TV. Within just this decade naman siguro. 1932, Albert Einstein said, there is not the slightest indication that nuclear energy will ever be obtainable. It would mean that the atom would have to be shattered at will. And shattered at will, it has. No? I think within this decade after 1932, na fully utilized yun ang nuclear energy. 1936, a rocket will never be able to leave the Earth's atmosphere at times. 1946, TV won't be able to hold on. Siguro kay 1946, sana ang TV, no? Ang naging television. But TV won't be able to hold on to any market it captures after the first 6 months. People will soon get tired of staring at plywood box every night. Parang lang kayo tanawon, no? Because every night, ironically, wala yun na undan, no? Since siguro 1950s until now. 1949, where a calculator on the ENIAC is equipped with 18,000 vacuum tubes and weighs 30 tons, computers of the future may have only 1,000 vacuum tubes and perhaps weigh 1.5 tons. Computers of the future. Pila ka transistors ang atong smartphones karon, di ba? Millions upon billions. So ilang prediction is only 1,000 vacuum tubes. Isa nag-predict popular mechanics. And popular mechanics nowadays, di ba nga popular. The magazine man sila, I think popular mechanics. So, dalang pa kayo ni Direk, no? Yung gusto na ako ni strengthenan, submission first, first Direk. Data processing, no? Pag ano, PC, no? Copying machine. The world potential market for copying machine, Xerox machines, is 5,000 at most. That's the idea. There is practically no chance communication space satellites would be used to provide better telephone, telegraph, or radio service. Satellites na siya. 1961. 1977. There is no reason for any individual to have a computer in his home. Hear that, guys? So that they use a computer in every home. Pero mo biya ni ang vision ni Bill Gates previously, a computer in every home. So even Bill Gates had also a wrong prediction. No one will need more than 637 kilobytes of memory for a personal computer. 640 kilobytes ought to be enough for anybody. Agree mo ni guys? Gusto may makaya sa 640 kilobytes karon nga RAM? Wala mo siguro eh. Inyo siguro mga smartphones na siguro sa mga 8 gig, no? 8 gigabytes na memory. Hindi na to may imagine no? Sa nang kagamay ni 840 kilobytes. Diba? Yung siguro mga nangamatan na computer, no? Kung nagkamalay na mo, ang RAM siguro ato, I estimate na siguro sa mga 2 gigs na during the time na naka-learn mo gamit yung computer. Ito na, mga 8 gigs at least. Fairly decent nga PC. Nasa mga 8 gigs na. So even si Bill Gates na nag-envision of computer at every home, okay na lang 640 kilobytes. 1981, cellular phones will absolutely not replace local wire systems. You know, because at that time, 1981, grabe man po ilang design or pagka-engineer sa local wire systems. Siguro, Marty Cooper would be given the benefit of the doubt because the local wire systems na na-invent during this period is still used man up until now. So maybe understandable lang makapredict siya din. Okay. 89, we will never make a 32-bit operating system. Bill Gates said, we will never make a 32-bit operating system. Kalo na nasa 64-bit. 1992. The idea of personal communicator in every pocket is a pipe dream driven by greed. Siguro siguro some truth to this one. No? In 1995, I predict that the internet will soon go spectacularly supernova and in 1996 catastrophically collapse. Founder of Precom, inventor of the Ethernet. 2003, Steve Jobs said, the subscription model of buying music is bankrupt. I think you could make available the second coming a subscription model and it might not be successful. Di ba siya man ang nag-forerun po daan no? So far, siguro, tabog, ikaw ang lugar niya yung own words. Subscription model for buying music. There is no chance that the iPhone is going to get any significant market share. Steve Ballmer, CEO of Microsoft. I think I think same yung sentiment siguro ni Charles Duell, Commissioner of the U.S. Patent, U.S. Office of Patents in 1899. Everything that can be invented has been invented. No? If ato bitong panlantaw sa technology karon is very mature na and di na to ma-drive further ato imagination. So magbigay ko ani iyang pa, no? If we have that kind of mentality or mindset, di na natin imagine yung 7 or 5 or 10 years from now, it will be true, no? Na everything that can be invented has been invented with. What more could there be? Pero, uh, if the thing kita, no? No, it's not really it, but if you know Magel, no? That technology will still improve every year. No? There will be more inventions to come from it. Funny lang ang mga predictions nila sa una. So, speaking of technology, I think this slide defines what technologies will 5G be using. So first part sa slide here, focus your attention lang sa left na portion. Isa naman din sila, no? Isa lang din sila. Ako lang gikat kay hindi na masigo sa isa na slide kung di pa lengthwise siya. But yeah, these are the technologies that will define 5G. Ang mga technologies is na rin sa leftmost part, like peak data speeds, carrier aggregation, advanced MIMO, MIMO, that's MIMO ganit. Search ako multiple input, multiple output technology. So, this is just an introduction of the term. No? Even pag explain the technology of massive input, massive output is a subject in itself. Pero yeah, that's one of the technologies that will define 5G. Not only that, but also 256 QAM. No? Remember this term, QAM? Sa QAM 8 na to last sem. No? So 256 QAM DI will be the modulating principle that will govern 5G. And in 256 QAM, kay ma-compare natin din, no? Ma-imagine pa natin din. Sa base sa ato na learn kang tumasi, dili pa kayo ni lisod i-imagine ang 256 QAM. No? So that will be the technology that 5G will use. No? So CAT-M and NB-IoT. So because of 5G. But 5G will utilize new radio or 5G radio, whatever this is. So vital is the first part slide. So standards, when was it defined? For 3G, it was defined in the 2000s. Yeah, so one I mentioned earlier. No? During our time, 4G was still a theoretical construct. Imagine, sa mong panahon sa una, ang 4G kay imagination pa. Because wala ko mag-define, no? Because at that time, when we were still studying wireless communications, 3G was still being defined, no? Currently being defined at that time. So sakto yun, during the 2010s, nagawas na ang quote-unquote 4G, no? Or LTE. Ang 4G LTE Advanced Pro gani, diba, ang iyang mga standards kay 2017 from mga defined. So maybe the 4G LTE that we are using today is still 4G LTE Advanced. After siguro sa 4G LTE Advanced Pro, na kay 4G LTE Advanced Pro Max, with 5G, data peaks. For 5G, it will be more than 2 gigabytes per second. So this is just a preview of the technologies that will be used to implement 5G. Sa very last part, very last part, ang first for dealing services happened. No? This happened. Voice, email, and web, mobile browsing was implemented really during 3G era. No? Video and audio streaming is a norm in 4G. No? Even HD video. Mo siguro ni ang mogid ni, no? Definitely mo ni ang technology na gina-use sa Netflix, HD video, and even YouTube nowadays. So if this has been true, this really happened for 3G and 4G, they projected that for 5G, virtual and augmented reality will take place, or will be implemented, and AI also. So if this happened during 3G and 5G environment, for sure, 5G will really utilize AI and virtual reality. So atong naiskutan earlier na smart glasses, pinod din siguro to, no, with 5G. Kaya technically, wala pa mangyod, no? Wala pa mangyod na kuha ng 5G. Wala pa mangyod na igawas. Wala pa mangyod igawas. But in fact, they're still starting to roll out the hardware backbone for 5G. Even if ngayon sila nanay 5G na SIM card, hindi naman siguro marag as far as I can remember, class, no, 5G daw would use or would not use, no, 5G would not use the existing backbone that has been used for 4G, 3G, and 2G. Unlike 3G, which is an improvement of 2G, and unlike 4G, which is an improvement also of 3G, kaya ang 4G, nagamit man siya ang backbone infrastructure ni 3G and 2G. 5G would be entirely different daw. Okay naman siguro kung mag-word ko. Mag-useful ka na word daw. Kaya wala pa mag-yun, no? Wala pa 5G. But 5G daw will not use the backbone or infrastructure that 4G has used. Bago daw siya, no? Totally different. And with that, 5G will use, will have new hardware para magamit ang, or basically, lahat na ng klaseng ng mga smartphones atong gamiton kung gusto ta mo gamit daw 5G. Unlike bitaw PG is greater than 4G pag yapo. So, unlike bitaw ang atong cellphones class nga, di ba? I think it's accurate man to say nga kita tanan here sa kaning room right now the use of 4G capable nga smartphone, no? Wala man siguro isa sa ato dire, no? I hope wala nagagamit o Nokia nga 3310 nga klase nga cellphone, no? Pero even if ang atong cellphone karon is a smartphone, no, magagamit o 4G or LTE, baka capable gyapon, no? Capable gyapon ng atong cellphone. Capable gyapon ng atong cellphone na makamake o calls or texts, diba? Kaya ang call that is 1G man, no? First generation na siya ng technology. Ang texting or GSM, 2G na siya. Ang mobile data, muna 3G. Muna 3G. So, ang atong cellphone, which is 4G capable, could still perform 1G, 2G, and 3G services. No? So ang atong cellphone na 4G could perform 1G, 2G, and 3G services. Pero ang 5G daw, no? 5G daw na hardware or na smartphone, ilangan gina-project, dili na daw maka-provide of 1G to 4G na services. That's why they think na if we want to use 5G, we should have newer hardware, newer smartphones. So that's one of the projections sa ilang itatanaw. Maybe, maybe it's possible na 5G same lang atong paliton, saksak na sa atong 4G nga cellphone, pwede na daw gihapon. But don't know. Maybe we need to purchase newer smartphones now when 5G will be implemented. So I think that's a good news, man. Bilis ko na ito siya tanawon as a disadvantage. Good news din sila. Good news din na siya din. Okay, so that ends my first slide. Let's try to look at my second slide now. Okay, so that's just an introduction to wireless communication. The second part to learning wireless communication is to be exposed to its wired na backbone or wired
Excuse me, sir. Nawala ang screen share, sir.
Oo, ako na start to look. Ang second na slide, ako pang set up. Tara, second na slide. So, it's important for us to study also the wired backbone behind the wireless communications that we have now. Okay, kung man iyahang forefather or actually digit forefather kay gagamit mo magyapon, no? Even ang atong wireless technology now is still using the wired backbone of the telephone system. So yeah. So this is an introduction to the telephone system and basic telephony. I think kadumdum ko before katong naka-ask ka ends regarding atong mga topics bitaw sa board exam na mention na term telephony.
Oh, kanazir.
Diba? Kaya sa COM 4 magina siya. COM 4 gina siya na topic. Wala na siya sa COM 3 or sa COM 5. Wala siya sa COM 8, COM 9 or COM 10. Entirely different na siya ng COM na wala na sa inyo ano ka. So at least karon, no? It's better nga na i-review natin yung mga set of slides. In kaso man nga kuan ni sa inyo ma-cover di ako, at least sila makakulat sa mga terms. So what do we need telephones for? No? The phone systems allow business to communicate internally. Kasi di naman gives you na to technically need i-imagine. Okay? At some point in our life, nagagamit man din o telephone, di ba? So, kings mo ba din wala na din nang gamit o katong telephone nga na ay telephone nga nakakabit sa wall nga outlet, handset, no? Pero still, sige lang, no? Kaya na siya joke, pero I'm sure, ma-imagine mo ginagawa even sa mga films or mga movies, kita mo natin. So phone systems allow businesses to communicate internally and externally in much more efficient fashion. Kaya siguro externally mo na usually nga itong imagine or mao ginatong nagamit. Pero there is still a need for phone systems for internal communications. No? I think later ito na siya ma-explain further. The phone system acts as a centralized exchange that places and receives internal and external calls. Typically, a phone system is deployed as a server at business location, while the hosted delivery models were service deployed at a third-party location. There are two types of phone system, the PBX and the key system. So ang PBX ang more prevalent between the two, more common. At their most basic level, telephone systems allow businesses to connect its phones via a limited number of lines to the public telephone network. So akong ipang highlight ng keywords diha because that is the key feature of the whole telephone system. So isa sa iyang feature good is limited number of lines. So when we say telephone communication, example na mo yung telephone na set sa inyong balay and you're trying to call your friend and your friend also receives your call through a telephone set. Believe it or not, there is a direct line or direct connection between you and your friend. So physically, pwede na ito ma-trace connection between you and your friend physically. So na ay physical nga wired na link between you and your friend. So say disadvantage dahil diha. One disadvantage of that is there is a limited amount of resources when using telephone systems. Okay. We do not have infinite amounts of wires between you and any person across the globe. Limited amount of wire. So technically, only a limited amount of people, although this limited amount is still a large number ng gihapon today, but the idea is, there is a limited amount of resources to cater telephone calls. Meaning ideally, it's impossible for all people to use the telephone simultaneously. All people in the world, it's impossible nga sila tanan mag-simultaneously use telephone system. So because of the idea na limited lang din ang amount of resources to make dedicated telephone call possible. So by today, without a phone system, each phone would have to connect separately to the public phone network. Each phone would effectively have its own line, and even internal calls would have to be routed to the public phone network. So another emphasized keyword here is the public telephone network. Try to take note of that those terms. Technically, kung dapat PSTN, Public Switch Telephone Network. Butang lang ng S diya sa tunga-tunga sa public and telephone. It's supposed to be Public Switch Telephone Network, which I'll explain later. Dili day enough ang telephone set sa kanabalay and ang wires nag-exist in between the telephone set, between each and every telephone sets. There should be an intermediary between those telephone sets and the wires connecting those telephone sets. And that intermediary or that central system is what we call this one, the public telephone network or the public switch telephone network, the PSTN. Today, phone systems do much more than this basic phone call capability by including features that deliver substantial benefits to the business. Most phone systems come complete with basic capabilities such as voicemail and call forwarding. Later, I mas ma-understand. Especially considering atong telephone system nowadays, it's really not purely analog. So kaninga mga capabilities, this is only possible with digital telephone communications. So phone systems have the following function. No? Voicemail, call forward, call hold, conference, paging. So para sa ako bitaw class, these functions or services are more bitaw the na sila kanang as is and ato na yung gina take for granted because mo gina ang capabilities sa telephone system. But if we look at how telephone systems were designed initially, no, these are functions that were added on to the telephone communication system as time went forward. No? So karon, makaingon pa nga, mo magid no, mo magid yung capabilities sa atong telephone system, but previously these were not, no, these were additional no, features, no? Especially call hold, call hold. By just a click of a button or an icon sa atong smartphone, kung mag-make ka og call, pwede na, no? Pwede na ito maka-perform call na hold. So before, this is a feature na hinanglan with i-incorporate sa telephone system. Patapanig, no? Diba ang naman eh? What if the world exists without engineers? So first with classical telephone system. So the classical telephone system. I think wrong gani akong pag-choose aning telephone set sa right. No? So this is not a classical telephone system. Digital naman gud ni. No? So how do I know nga digital ni? Because nasa LCD screen. No? So malagi na siya. Wala siya nga-differentiate between digital, right? Pero tanan maging siguro, no? Tanan maging nga digital telephone set, lagi na siya LCD screen. And ang mga analog telephone set, lagi na siya LCD screen. So isa na siya sa mga de facto na characteristic sa digital telephone set na LCD screen. So I think wrong siguro akong pag-choose na yung picture dapat delete mo. No? Kaya sigurong telephone na i-dial. No? Or even if buttons na siya, no? Button na ihang dial pad. Pero, or yung keypad. Pero wala pa gaya po yung LCD screen. So I think wrong na siya. So a classical telephone system is composed of telephones, the PBX or the private branch exchange, voicemail, central office, frontline, and etc. Relatively easier to administer. No? Right now, the only thing left for the service provider to do is to provide you with a set and just install the lines. No? Relatively easy. Wala na first, wala may software involved. Wala ilang na siya i-install and administer. No VoIP or Voice over Internet Protocol. Have you heard of this term before, VoIP? Voice over Internet Protocol? Kasi natanungan ni previously. So VoIP is a different set or kanina with different type of technology. Pangyapon, no? This is an important piece of technology nowadays. So it's better na ma-acquainted na aning term, VoIP. So VoIP, although the way we use VoIP is very similar to how we use the classical telephone system. Like imagine making a call with your analog telephone set. You pick up the handset, you dial the number, make a call, ka sa ringtone, wala ka na i-pick up sa other line. So that's how we normally perform a phone call. If we create also a phone call but using VoIP, wala kayo difference. The same gapon ang process. The same gapon ang process. You pick up the headset, you dial the number. But this time, the system will not be using the same system that the classical telephone system is using. This is more of digital in nature. Entirely different technology. Because it's worth mentioning now lang, because maybe if we will encounter this in the future, this term VoIP, we should not necessarily associate it with the classical telephone system, even if exactly the same lang ilahang exactly the same on how we use each technology. Okay, the SDN. This is the backbone, the backbone, the brain, the heart of the telephone system. The PSTN, or the Public Switch Telephone Network, is the aggregate of the world's circuit switch telephone network that are operated by national, regional, or local telephony operators, providing infrastructure and service for public telecommunication. So the PSTN consists of telephone lines, fiber optic network, microwave transmission link, cellular network, communication satellites, and undersea telephone cables, all interconnected by switching centers. Take note of that term. Switching network, switching centers, thus allowing most telephones to communicate with each other. Originally a network of fixed line analog telephone system, the PSTN is now almost entirely digital in its core network. It includes mobile and other networks as well as fixed telephones. Pero ang mobile na part is, I think, hindi naman yung siguro part sa PSTN. Kasi lang, ato naman differentiate. So, switching centers. So the first part sa upper portion sa slide, that is the PSTN, or the Public Switch Telephone Network. It is a circuit switch network. So ang concept nga yan, gina-use a circuit switch in contrast to the internet, which is a packet switch network. So I think Sir Jim has mentioned the concept of packet switch network before. It is an exchange of data, whereas the circuit switch network is an exchange of voice. So we could also define the PSTN as a network of central offices. Okay? So I think kanang mga nasa tunga bitaw class na nasa inside sa green na cloud, no? Cloud yan na gagamit na symbol. So nasa green na cloud, those are what we call the central offices. Central offices. Ang iyahang counterpart sa internet are the routers. No? So if the routers route data within the internet, the central offices in the PSTN will route the voice calls. So kaning comparison, parallel siya because I think mas dali na-explain ang PSTN if ato siya i-contrast with the internet. So the public switch telephone network is a circuit switch network, whereas packet switch networks move data in separate small blocks. Circuit switch networks and packet switch networks have traditionally occupied different spaces within the operation. Packet switch networks were used for phone calls and certain switch networks are used for phone calls and packet switch networks handle data. So, siguro that's one of the easier ways to differentiate between circuit switch and packet switch. When you say circuit switch, voice calls, and packet switch kay data. But again, karon man good, no? Nowadays, pwede bang maka-create of voice call using digital means. No? So for us, it's easier to understand packet switching man siguro, no? It's like the one in the lower portion. Whereas circuit switching, whenever two devices would want to communicate, there is a need of an actual physical connection between the two devices. For example, si terminal 1 would want to call terminal 6. No? So terminal 1 would want to call voice call terminal 6. There is a direct physical line between terminal 1 and terminal 6 using all of these switches. Switch 1, switch 3, switch 4, switch 5. So directly. So the central office, this is what I have mentioned earlier. Telecoms is a building. Okay? I didn't give you the actual building or the physical building, but the building which houses the system, the switching systems, is a building to which subscriber home and business lines are connected on a local loop. This office has telephone switches to switch calls locally or to a long distance carrier office. The term is also known as end office or public exchange. End office, public exchange, central office, whatever. Each telephone in our home or office has a line which goes all the way to a central office. The PSTN could be considered as a network of central offices. The public switch telephone network could be considered as a network of central offices in the same way that the internet is a network of routers. So the internet is a network of routers, the PSTN is a network of central offices. So sa una mo ni ang what's happening inside the central office. No? Manual yun ang pag-route sa mga calls. So it's this line called the endpoint aning line is this point called the demarcation point. It's very important, demarcation point in a more commercial context. No? Important class, whether future electronics engineers mo or dili, no? Or customers mo or consumers or subscribers. No? Kung subscribers manggaling mo sa mga atong service providers, no? Internet service provider or telephone service provider, it's important for us to know in a commercial point of view where the demarcation point is. Kaya mo na siya ang delineate between asa imong responsibility and asa ang responsibility sa service provider. Okay? So any fault inside the demarcation point is our responsibility. So kung gigit-git sa ilaga ang wire after the demarcation point, at wala siya responsibility. And the opposite is also true. Any fault sa line outside the demarcation point, hindi na natin siya concern. So it's important for us to know where the demarcation point is. So kung patawag mong internet, opportunity nga mas istorya ng technician, let's just hope kabalupod siya sa term. Pero yeah, it's important for us to know where the demarcation point is. Pero usahay, kabalupod ka asan kung last point sa kung asa na connect ang ang linya nato, no? Just after sa atong gate baka or sa pader, sa balay. Sa dihang demarcation point. So again, important yung maluta asa na siya. So how our calls routed, no? This may be very complex or complicated to understand. Telephone numbering plan is the type of numbering scheme used in telecommunications to assign telephone numbers to subscriber telephones or other telephony endpoint. So this area po na sa how actual routers route data in the internet. This area po sa telephone system. The moment mo press the telephone number, ang mga switches somehow ga-align na sila to for it to be able to make the call possible. Telephone numbers are the address of participants in the telephone network, reachable by a system of destination. Telephone numbering plans are defined in each of administrative regions of the public switch telephone network. So ang mga central offices inside the public switch telephone network, pina-assign na sila. I forgot the name of the governing body. The take care. Pero yes, every administrative region, ginassign na sila of numbering schemes or numbering plan. For public number systems, geographic locations play a role in the sequence of numbers. Of course, no? I think that's the easiest way to assign numbering plans in terms of geographic location. Any numbering plans subdivide the territory of service into geographic regions designed by a prefix, also or often called an area code or city code. So this again is about area code. Your 88. No, this is your 88. Area code. So it's again, no, your 88. Anyway, so start ko na siya. Dala ko na siya ang governing body. So lagyan ko na question. The International Telecommunications Union or IT. Take note of this. No? Maybe mag-gosin sa inyo ang board exam. Mag-gosin sa ako before. It's a specialized agency of the United Nations that is responsible for the issues that concern information and communication technologies. It's the oldest global international organization. IT was established a comprehensive numbering plan designated E164 for uniform interoperability of the networks of its member state or regional administration. So sila ang govern sa mga policies and standards that relate to telephony and telecommunications. E164 defines a general format for international telephone numbers. Plan conforming numbers are limited to a maximum of 15 digits, excluding the international call codes. Trunk lines, what are trunk lines? Trunk line or a trunk is a single communications channel between 2 points, each point being either the switching center or the node. So a trunk line is either between switch to switch or central office to switch or PBX to switch. Trunk lines allow us to communicate with the outside world. Number of trunk lines you have determines how many phone calls can be made outside at any one time with the incoming workload. Of course, because again, as I've said, limited number of resources. Or in this case, at least our main resources are lines. PBX, or the private branch exchange, is where all the trunk lines are connected. It serves as a telephone server that routes all calls that are happening, whether internal or external. So, kung ato ning i-imagine, compare nato siya sa internet. The PBX is the switch. switch. Yeah, switch siya din siya ang router mismo. Okay, let's say ang router na lang tama sa PSTN. Voicemail. So voicemail, even sa Philippines, hindi man kayo ni fully utilize, no? Wala man nato ni na kuan kaayo, no? Atong system, si telephone system karon wala kayo na fully maximize ang kanyang service, voicemail. Because I think during the time kano saan na increase ang subscribers sa Philippines, subscribers sa telephone sa Philippines, mapuno nga tayo nag-saka po ng users sa 2G. So, wala ka kaya nakita siguro sa atong country ang use for voicemail. Pero if kabantay mo bitaw, di ba, sa US, especially sa mga salida, gamit kayo nila ang voicemail. So this is only possible with a special type of telephone set. Digital na siya. Digital naman yung service ang voicemail. Yung kaya natin siya ikot kayo. Go further to detail. So devices that go into the PX, no? There are analog telephones or digital telephones. And there are also VoIP phones. Yung mga pagdire, compare and contrast. So ang advantage sa VoIP is medium yung initial price and low yung operating price. So siguro sa kanina kuan, ang VoIP ang pinaka advantageous, no? VoIP for now, no, for the public, hindi kaayo wala kayong advantage to using VoIP. If one lang ta, no, if kanang regular subscriber, gamit kayo ang VoIP, especially sa internal telephone system sa isang company. So take note of this lang, no? Kanang tanong sa inyong subconscious that maybe in the future, when you're going to work na, maybe you'd be employed in a company nag-utilize of VoIP. So one company in particular that I have observed that is using VoIP, and maybe siguro other big companies is kagayan gamit ng siguro internet VoIP. Wala na ko naka-observe first hand. But isa sa akong nakita yun, no, isang Sipalco, no, inside sa Sipalco, they utilize a lot of mga IP phones or internet protocol phones. Pwede nila i-connect ilahang, not only ang ilahang IP phones ang na-connect sa system, but also ilang computer. Such that, pwede sila maka-receive na of voice call, no? Which is very amazing siguro sa atong where we're standing right now. Pwede sila maka-receive of voice calls using their computer, no? Using their PC. Example, every employee ng yun is na ilang own telephone set, which is a VoIP telephone. Then, nanawag sa ilaha, nanawag sa ilang standalone na telephone set. Pwede nila i-receive itong call using their computers. Tapos nag-ring ilang telephone. Pero dito nila i-receive sa ilang PC. No? Kaya ilang PCs na connect man sa ilang telephone. So, kung ilang PCs, may connect na headset, may connect na microphone, pwede nila dawaton ang call sa ilang own na PC. So that's the advantage of VoIP. That's why compared sa analog digital, medium lang ang initial na price, then low ang operating price. Why? Because pwede siya mo gamit ang existing na internet na infrastructure, no? Or yeah, data communications infrastructure. So, hindi na necessarily na magdungag pa o additional lines kung if ever man mag-install of new, no? I think ang comparison ani is if mag-install of new connection. So kung analog, high ang operating price, no? Because you'll be paying for, well, big services mo yun. Compared sa digital, no? I don't know why mas lower yung operating prices sa analog, napareha naman sila og infrastructure. Of course, mas high ang initial price sa digital, mas mahal na ng digital nga set sa analog. Computer analog. So understandably, low ang operating price for VoIP na internet, VoIP na telephone system. Kaya mag-use man sa existing data communications network. So I think the kanina part sa slide is nagtatag ko some examples of telephone sets. So this is an analog one, analog telephone set. Ano analog siya? Kaya wala LCD screen, no? So wala LCD, analog na siya. So na ni LCD screen, digital na siya, no? But not all telephone sets na LCD screen kay digital only. It could be VoIP phones siya. This one in particular, magiging research, digital telephone lang siya. Dili siya IP phone. So this is an example now of an IP phone. Notice ang iyang LCD screen. Meron na siya screen sa smartphone. Not really sure if touch screen siya. But yeah, this is the kind of telephone set that I have mentioned previously. Previous slide. Pwede na siya connected sa network together with your PC, such that whenever someone calls you sa imong telephone set using this device, pwede nyo i-receive using your this is a VoIP phone. This is also another type of telephone used for what? Have you seen this one? No? I'm not really sure if you have observed this one in real life. For some mga movies, I'm sure na eh. Kabantay mo ni class na telephone set bottom right. Next kilo. Oh, this is next kilo, of course. Wala mo, bantayan na naman yung mga salida. Even sa mga Pinoy galing na salida na naman eh. They use this type of telephone set in conference calls. No? Ginabutang niya siya sa tunga-tunga sa mga salida. Sorry. Tunga-tunga sa mga lamisa, no? Sa mga tables, conference table. And imagine a meeting, no, with board of directors, and each one would want to have an opportunity to talk, no, to someone on the other end of the line siguro. So sa kabutan nito tunga-tunga sa table, no, for anyone around the table to be able to speak without needing to place a handset over the ears. So conference phone, I think, conference phone. So unsay common denominator ani nila class? Kabantay mo sa akong i-prepare na slide. Would like to point out or kasi naka-observe. Not like common denominators lang upat.
Keypad, sir.
Keypad. Okay, of course, ang sa keypad tanan. Pero ito pa, napat ko isa nga ituyog yun nga something kaya nila.
Phone. Phone sila, sir.
Yeah, aside sa phone. Napag yung isa, magagwan mo yung detective pa. Black and color, okay. What else? Display. Sige na, ako na lang mag-reveal. The seems like brand. Seems like brand. So, ang manufacturer aning set of phone is Avaya. So, noon kay na siya nga brand name when it comes to telephone communication. Or actually, when it comes to kuan, no? VoIP phones. So, I'm not really a representative of Avaya. Pero what if in the future, employee mo in a company, then di pangayuan mo o recommendation on what brand to use. So at least mo isa nga pwede makatag na brand, Avaya. So this is actually not really possible without Avaya, the power of we. Avaya is an American multinational technology company headquartered in California, being the leader in business communications, specifically unified communications. To try to look these terms up, medyo common lang, common words yung gamit, business communication, pero this is a specific type of actually not technology. I'm not sure anong isa ang nag-i-aning ng mga nag-initially nag-use aning ng mga words na common naman din di paggamit na terms. So specific this is a very specific type of technology or service and business communication or unified communications using muna ang niche sa Avaya. There are multiple there are multiple big names when it comes to telephone communications. Even in the US, we have Cisco, no? Even Cisco produces VoIP phones man. Pero mo gid siya ang specialty sa Avaya, business communications or unified communications. So maybe in the future, again, as I've said, as you employ mo sa isang company, then pangayon mo advice kung saan ang klase ng telephone system ang gamiton, is na mo yung mahatag na credible na name, Avaya. Avaya is the largest pure play UC and CC company, ranking number 1 in CC and number 2 in UC and collaboration. So that ends our discussion on the introduction to telephone. So ang keywords we got of the class is PSTN. If we would understand how PSTN works, it's not difficult to understand the whole telephone system. If you want more information on telephone systems, abot niyo sa board exam lugar po. If you want to brush up on telephone systems, kanilang yun, even if kanilang inyong i-remember nga term. This is why this is why the telephone system works as it is working now because of the PSTN or the public switch telephone network. Masking ka na lang class, remember na siya na. Okay? So it's 3 p.m.